It's across the freeway, right?
Right from the Getty Center.
Right, lovely.
Yeah.
I grew up in Studio City.
Okay, we live in Encino, so.
There you are.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
it's awesome. Madison's a beautiful place. Everywhere I go is beautiful, and it's always nice. I Google to make sure I find a Reform synagogue, so I'll feel comfortable.
Great.
So I look forward
Tell
to
me your name.
My name's Judy.
Hi, Judy. I'm Jonathan. Bye.
Jonathan, it's a pleasure. So I look forward to seeing what your sermon's going to be on tonight.
Oh, it's on Numbers, of course, because we're reading the book of Numbers, so
Yeah.
you'll see.
Well, that's what I did. I'm always fascinated to hear
Where rabbis go.
where rabbis go, because we've
Uh-huh.
always belonged to Reform synagogues all of my life. So, I'm comfortable listening to what the rabbi has to say. My son-in-law is a modern Orthodox, so whenever I ask him what the service is, he never pays attention to the service. He's wondering. And I can always report exactly what the guy said, so it's just a difference.
Oh, Judy, I'm so glad you're here to keep watch. I mean, I'm just playing.
To make sure the person sitting next to me doesn't fall asleep.
Pardon?
The pressure's on.
The pressure's on, right?
Well, and
That's all right.
a beautiful place to have a synagogue, beautiful place. I got here early because I never know if I'm going to get lost and
Yeah.
wander down to the lake.
Oh, okay.
Just, yeah.
It's a great setting. We have had worship in the park, and it's a great atmosphere for that. We, a few years ago, built a terrace out there, so we have services out there as well. And that's across the street from us is an arboretum, it's the W Arboretum, which will never change. It's sacred land for a lot of different so this is just a beautiful place.
So we train so many services in and out.
Oh, lovely.
And
Good.
so it's just beautiful. It's, you look at the temple, you look at the hillside. You can't see any deer. You can see the damage the deer did during COVID. They are all in
I'm sure.
vegetation. But it's just so nice, and all turn around, so look for the Shabbat bride to come in. And it's a great setting.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'll let you guys continue practicing and getting in the mood.
I think we're done that. This is our accompanist, Ted Reinke.
Ted, pleasure.
He's a half marathoner, probably a marathoner too.
No, I like halves.
Oh, okay.
Halves I can run and have the rest of the day.
My son is running in that tomorrow morning also.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is my race for Wisconsin, so I picked Madison to come to.
Do you know the route of the race? Sometimes they come down to this Monroe Street, the main street over here.
Not really.
Not for tomorrow?
I don't think Monroe Street is involved in this one.
Yeah, you look, and one of the things we went to Dublin a couple years ago, and my daughter comes back from her run, and she says, "Mom, they're running a marathon." I said, okay. And then we went to catch the bus didn't come, so now I look at all races to see what routes are going to be closed.
That's smart. Yeah, sometimes they run races here. It's not always a marathon, but sometimes they do a, what's that,
There's a 5K that's 3.1, a 10K 6.2.
But there's also, what's that event, the triathlon?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the triathlon, and they run by here, and they also bike by here, so it's like, this is a very popular place.
Well, it's fun because when I go, it gives me the opportunity to see the city. And, I looked at the route, I don't know any of the streets, and I'm just looking at all the really neat things. And a lot of times we'll run by a zoo and you can see the giraffes. And pretty much the only thing that's head that you can see.
That's fun.
You're aware that we're not far at all from the zoo.
Yeah.
I don't know if the giraffes are out or not. They are when they want to be.
Lately, but,
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
Enjoy. And what time does your race start?
Race starts tomorrow at 7.
At 7. That makes sense.
That's obscene.
No, it isn't. No,
Not in
it
the
is
summer.
not.
It isn't.
No, when you run,
Hi, Joanne.
you want to get as many miles in before it gets warm.
You're from LA, but tomorrow is supposed to be about 85 to 90 and humid.
Yeah, I'm from
So
LA.
you're going to want to finish early.
I want to finish early, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's,
always true.
Yeah.
yeah, I prefer 60 degrees.
Oh, yes, I'm sure.
But I knew when I signed up to do the race in Madison, everybody said it's gonna be really hot, it's gonna be really humid. And I said, I don't care.
No, if you were running on Sunday, it would be better, because tomorrow evening there's major thunderstorms coming through.
Oh,
But they won't come until like, that clears out all the bad air.
oh, okay.
So by Sunday morning, it'll be very nice here, but anyway, you'll enjoy.
Huh?
Keep hydrated.
I will keep hydrated.
How are you? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
How are things? Okay.
Okay.
That sums it up.
Okay.
Yeah, vertigo.
Oh,
So,
okay.
feeling a bout of vertigo, so using that just in case.
So tonight, I think we're gonna have a light attendance, so everybody has to sing loud. Our cantor is on vacation, so I'm gonna be singing here with Ted's wonderful help. And sing out, sing loud, sing
Yes.
proud.
Do sing.
Please.
I don't have the best, I can't carry a tune, so.
Well,
I'll
then
try.
you're a lead, you have no responsibility for that,
Then.
don't worry about it.
Then.
No, I won't, but you might, so.
We'll see what
Nevertheless,
happens.
all right.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'll sing.
It's the depth of summer, because everyone is out doing something else.
Doing something.
Yeah,
I suspected it would be light, but
not this light.
not this light.
Not this light. Well, you never know, it's still like, 6 minutes to 7:30. And there may be, I don't know how many people are online, how many people, we usually get like in the 30s,
Something like that.
so we'll see what happens.
I'm almost done with my class.
Oh,
We're
fantastic.
so close.
Yes?
It's like the end of August, I believe, is the last one.
Okay,
It's been very enjoyable.
I'm glad. Remind me who your teacher is?
Tamar Behilda.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce
I
it.
don't know her, but okay,
She's wonderful.
good.
What's your class? What do you study?
It's the converting to Judaism, so Judaism 101.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
How is doing that online? You find,
I like it a lot.
yes? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know. I sleep in on the weekends, so I can get up 15 minutes before class and just quickly get ready and be ready.
There you go. That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, and we get people from all over the world too. Like there's one woman that's on there that's in Germany.
Oh, okay. What time here does it happen?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So in Germany it's like 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's always interesting because we have so many different people.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of different questions being thrown at the teacher?
Yeah, we get a lot of good discussions.
Good.
Harvey, want to go on the other side, or you want to just sit out here?
Well, continued good luck and success, and that's awesome. We'll talk.
Yeah, we will be talking very soon.
Good. Good. Shabbat Shalom.
Hello, hello.
I don't know. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. Oh, that's an idea. Thank you. Good for reminding me.
got actually much more, I had experience in that during the program.
Mhm.
But she's got real, like, scholarship on that. It's gonna be a good fit.
Lovely.
Yeah, yeah, I'm grateful to you for doing it. You probably have done this
Well, this
on
is,
a couple of successions?
I just started my second one.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, well, still, even
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's really good.
Thank you.
It's nourishing, right?
Very,
I
actually.
know,
It is.
it is a surprising good of way.
I think the match system, as far as I could see, the matching system worked very well, at least for my first one in the last 2 weeks.
I would say it's kind of like matching roommates in college.
Mm.
Honestly, it's hit or miss.
Okay.
We have very few matches that come back and say, the chemistry's not right, not a great fit. But based on this new questionnaire, I'd like to see that move forward. But we'll see what it does. In any case, I'm glad it's working for you.
That, it has,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's good. And you've been in Madison now for
17 years.
It's time for exactly that amount.
Okay. It was good.
I'm done. It was good.
Awesome.
Anyway,
I'm
thank
glad you
you.
could come tonight.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to start very soon, so. Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
How are you guys?
Good.
You haven't gotten your official, like, Temple Bethel things?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I mean, those are good. We know who you are,
Yeah.
so that's all right.
Yeah, we have to decorate it. We have tried Shabbat.
There you go, right. Okay. Let Ted come when you are ready.
I think we're ready.
Janet, I gave you a prayer book.
Oh, okay.
So, and yeah.
So make sure you take it home when you go home. As the rabbi gave it, I heard. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Tired.
The end of the week, I can see a lot of people are probably tired. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're just going to begin tonight. We sing with gusto, and we sing with music, and we sing with our hearts and our souls. Right? Just continue the Shabbat Shalom. If you're joining us online, and if you're joining us here in the sanctuary, we welcome you on this beautiful Shabbat evening. It's a beautiful night. If you're here with us online, be sure you know you have 3 or 4 links there you can click on. You have the prayer book link, you have the link to our program tonight, and you have a few important links that take you to information and for opportunities to help families who are sadly affected by the shooting in Highland Park, and also to help families and people who live in Ukraine to exist. So please click on those links. And for those of you who are here in our sanctuary, you have a prayer book, and the program is just for your information. I think we're going to stick pretty much to the prayer book tonight, so just sit back and relax and enjoy what we do. Prayer leads us through many important moments in our lives. There are the memories of things that we do and memories of the things that people do for us. And so we are filled with gratitude at various times in our life. And there are things that we yearn for. There are things that we hope for. And so the prayers that we offer tonight also allow us to think about the future and to think about how we achieve what we want to in our lives. The strength that we derive from the worship and the strength that we derive from being in a community, irrespective of its size, are important things for us to take with us as we go through our lives. So I hope that this Shabbat enables each of us to take the spirit that abides within us during Shabbat, the spirit of rest and the spirit of community, and to make our lives better as we anticipate the new year in a few 2.5 months from now. We begin in our prayer book, page 129, with Ki Esh Merah Shabbat, using that same melody that we just sang by Dan Nichols, but we know that Shabbat enlivens us and preserves us in our lives. Page 129. Ki Esh Merah Shabbat El Yishmereini Oti Le'omead Beino Uveini Ki Esh Merah Shabbat El Yishmereini Oti Le'ol Me'ad Beino Uveini On page 120 is the bracha for the lighting of Shabbat candles. I'd like to offer a meditation, and then we will offer the bracha together. God, who can look directly into the light? We can behold with our eyes only a small portion, a fragment of that light. And when that one light is fragmented, the colors of the rainbow result. So let us give thanks for all the colors that are ours. All of them are part of the one light we are all bathed in the one light that is our fountain of life. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed are the hearts with strength to stop their beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Through the music of Kabbalat Shabbat, we welcome Shabbat with an opportunity to raise our voices, to sort of get warmed up a little bit. And the unique part of worshiping in a community that's slightly smaller than our normal congregation, the challenge is to sing out loud and to pick up music very quickly if you don't know it immediately. So we begin our Kabbalat Shabbat, our official welcome of Shabbat, with Lechu Neranenah that we find, I think, on page 130 in the prayer book, page 130, Lechu Neranenah. Lechu neranenah l'Adonai, nariah letzur yishenu, nekadma fanav betodah, bithmirot nariah lo, nekadma fanav betodah,
זמירות נריע לו. כי אל גדול אדוני ומלך גדול על כל אלוהים, אשר בידו מחקרי הארץ ותועפות הרים לו. אשר בידו מחקרי הארץ ותועפות הרים לו. On page 137, Ted, I'd like to do a reading here instead of going right to the next piece, but on page 137, I'd like us to offer this English translation of this selection from Psalm 95. It's 29, I'm sorry, Psalm 29 on 137. We offer this together. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips forests bare, while in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned, sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being and peace. That's what that word shalom means at the very end of that line. Page 138, we continue with Lecha Dodi, as indeed we take the spirit of Shabbat now sort of personified in this bride figure that comes to us, and we say, welcome, come in and abide with us. Page 138, Lecha Dodi. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 1. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem ultiferet ve'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, hu mitzei mitoch ha'hafecha. Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, vehu yachamol alayichem la. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Yamin u'smol tifrotzi, ve'et Adonai ta'aritzi. Al yad ish bein parti, ve'nismecha ve'nagila. Lecha dodi likrat Allah, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam besimcha uvetzohola. Toch emunei am segula, boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. And finally, for the conclusion of Kabbalat Shabbat tonight, on page 140, Tzadik Katamar, this selection from Psalm 92 starts with the indented paragraphs there in Hebrew, page 140. The other one, right. That one. Tzadik katamar yifrach, ke'erez balavanon yizkeh, shetulim bebeit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. Od yenuvun b'seva, teshenim v'rananim yiyu lehagid, ki yashar Adonai tzuri tzuri velo avlata bo. As we begin Ma'ariv, we watch the sun slowly setting, and we know that nighttime is a time of mystery. For some, it's a time of anxiousness, and perhaps it's a time of danger for others. But we know, at least here in this community, we gain strength from one another. And whatever happens on this evening, God willing, it will be for good. And God willing, tomorrow will also find us rising with joy and with love for one another. We begin Ma'ariv service with Baruch Hu, which is on page 146. We invite the community to rise, page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach hamevorach lehamevorach Baruch Adonai hamevorach hamevorach le'olam va'ed. On page 149, we continue at the top of the page together. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We continue together at the top of page 151. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We continue on page 154 as together we chant Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha, vedibarta bam, beshiftecha beveitecha, uvelechtecha vaderech, uveshochbecha, uvekumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish'arecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etechem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. On page 157 at the top, we continue together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, norat tehilot, Osefele Nora tehilot, Osefele. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokeh hayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam. Ze'eli, Ze'eli, anu ve'ameru. Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Leolam, leolam, leolam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov ugialo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai ga'al Yisrael. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. On page 160 is Hashkivenu, this evening prayer that seeks protection from all the things that we perceive as dangers at nighttime, and so that we can rise again tomorrow to face the world and to help the world improve. Join one another at the middle of page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162, Vishamru. Veshameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam leolam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. The word tefillah contains this fragment of an ancient root that means introspection, that means reflection. And especially at this time of year when we are in view of, in sight of the new year, it is always time to reflect, but especially at this time of year, it's always important to reflect upon our lives and how we can make ourselves better. So as we offer tefillah tonight, which we'll do partially aloud and partially in silence, we invite each one of us to make sure that our needs are met in this whole task that we have ahead of us of introspection, of accounting for our souls in the new year to come. We invite you to rise for the tefillah beginning on page 164. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel chasadim tovim, vekonei hakol, vezocher chasdei avot ve'imahot, umevi geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. 168. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata, rav lehoshia, morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, micha mocha bal givurot, umido melach, melech meimit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch ata Adonai, mechaye hakol. Page 170. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. Let's read together at the top of 171. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay, touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. As we know, our tradition places a great amount of importance in silence as well. Silence allows worship. Silence allows contemplation. Silence allows us to listen to the world about us and to understand something of what it is about if we're not knowledgeable about it. The implication is that we have to be open to the world around us, just as we need to be open to ourselves. So we pause for a few moments of silent prayer, and we'll meet one another on page 180 with Oseh Shalom, the end. Hoseh Shalom Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Hoseh Shalom Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Shvei Tevel Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amen. Hoseh Shalom Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amen. Shabbat Shalom. I want to really express my gratitude to this community tonight, whether you are with us online or whether you're here with us in our community in the sanctuary. When clergy take vacation in the summertime, it is, and we handle things quite differently here from the leading standpoint. So thank you for allowing me to lead services tonight. I want to thank Ted Reinke, who is accompanying me and helping me stay with the music. Even though I know some of these pieces from my youth, which means that that's imprinted and it's not really exactly the way the music is written. So Ted, thank you for your patience with me as well. But I want to tell you something even more important. I have to say it has happened. What has happened? My PINs, my personal identification numbers, have now increased from 4 to 6 digits. Heavens. Right? What is the world coming to? We should maybe feel flattered that the powers that be believe that we can now remember more digits to protect our online presences. Well, tell me when we get to 8 digits, and I guess by that time we'll need that level of protection. Forget about dual authentication. But till that time, let us think about what numbers mean for us today. And the question I raise for us tonight is this: how can the numbers that we find in Torah, or the numbers that influence our practical, spiritual, and moral existence, how do those numbers inform our lives? To what numbers do we need to attend? How do we, if you'll pardon the expression, make our lives count? We are now 9 weeks away from the start of the new year, and during these last few months of this year, our tradition asks us to shift our spiritual attention to what we call in Hebrew a cheshbon hanefesh, or an accounting, literally an accounting of the soul, so that when the high holy days arrive, we will already have started this journey toward repentance and reconciliation. Sorry for a second. This accounting may or may not involve numbers, but how we balance the good and questionable deeds of our lives, and how should that be part of our spiritual reckoning in this season of repentance to come, as we face the momentous task ahead of us to seek out and to implement acts of forgiveness. Now, the numbers that appear in Torah have a different purpose, of course. The prevalence of numbers in the Torah demonstrates the various concerns of the different biblical authors. For example, the book of Numbers begins, appropriately enough, with numbers. It begins with a general census of each of the tribes of Israel and a more detailed census of the 3 major clans in the tribe of Levi, because for them in particular, they received special attention because of their special role in serving the needs of the Jerusalem temple and its sacrificial system. At the beginning of this book, there were more than 600,000 Israelites, say the census, and they were all still encamped at Mount Sinai, waiting to proceed to the Promised Land. They were 1 year past their exodus from Egyptian captivity, still the slave generation. They were tentative, afraid even, and untested, both in observing God's commandments and in existing as a unified nation. Now, the book of Numbers tonight and next week also conclude with Numbers. We learn in these final parashiot about the number of Israelite fighters who are now confronting the Midianites, the specific amount of precious gold and other metals and animals, and even, sadly, human slaves that they seized as spoil, and the number of days spent in combat. These numbers recall for us our ancestors' need for portraying their nation's strength, their military prowess, and their national importance in the ancient Near East. The average reader of Torah, searching for the meaning of God's commandments, might view these lists of numbers as dry and uninteresting, but our Torah commentators felt differently. They tried to give all of these numbers a heightened level of meaning. For example, Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher, who was a 13th century Torah commentator in Spain, relates a small parable about numbers. He tells of a queen of a certain country who owned many barns, most of which were filled with straw and relatively inexpensive other commodities. In fact, they were so unimportant that she never bothered to count the precise contents of these warehouses. But she did have one barn, however, which was filled to the brim with firm and fresh wheat, ready for the marketplace, ready for feeding her people. And she told her caretaker, be sure to keep track of the amount of wheat stored in that barn. And we constantly need to keep track of the quantity and the quality of that wheat. What's the condition of the grain? Any parasites or fungus that need eradicating? How do we ensure its continued freshness and safety? This queen, as unimportant as those other barns were, this queen set this particular barn as her most important concern, tending to and caring for this bounty. And she did this as a daily responsibility. Now, in this parable, the ruler, this queen, of course, is a metaphor for God. The precious wheat is a metaphor for the Jewish people. And the caretaker represents Moses, the custodian and the protector of our people. And Rabbeinu Bachya asserts that this accounting process employed by the queen is not merely counting numbers, but rather it's indicative of God's care and concern for the substance of the people whom God has shepherded and protected throughout their history. For a moment, I want us to think of the numbers that are important to us. Birth dates, social security numbers. Don't tell me yours. Cups of flour in your homemade challah. Birthdays of friends to remember, and even your personal identification numbers, right? All these numbers and others hold great importance for us. Here are some numbers that might be important to our collective Jewish minds. You know these numbers, right? 6 days of creation, 1 day of Shabbat. 40 days from Moses being on Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments. 40 days of rain on Noah's Ark. 150 days that Noah's Ark floated upon the sea after the rain before coming upon dry land. Try these on for size. 10 Commandments. 10 deaths resulting from a shooting in Buffalo, New York this past spring. 9 weeks until the High Holy Days. 9 minutes almost or so it took for a police officer to take the life of George Floyd. 77 Sunset Strip for those who remember that television detective series. the 77 minutes of police inaction at Robb Elementary School at Uvalde, Texas. It takes, the 187 minutes it takes to watch the 2005 version of the film King Kong, the 187 minutes of the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. And finally, I think about the 228 U.S. representatives who just yesterday voted to pass legislation to ensure nationwide access to contraception without government restriction. But then I think about the 195 U.S. representatives in the House who voted against that bill. You see, not only are there numbers that are familiar and significant, but some have taken on iconic status, both in ancient and in modern contexts. These are numbers that some may find uninteresting, but for others they are significant, potent with meaning, and they motivate us. And because we are bombarded constantly with numbers from so many quarters, we must make distinctions about which numbers we can let go of and which numbers we need to remember. And at this most sensitive time of year, when our minds and our souls look toward the new Jewish year beginning just 9 weeks from now, there are numbers known only to us as individuals that can bring us to moments of meditation on the present and anticipation of the future. Here's what I mean. How many times each day do we express sincere gratitude for someone who has helped us? How often do we tell our closest friends or our partners how much they mean to us? When are the occasions when we avoid the temptation of misbehavior and choose to improve our relationships rather than dishonor them? And how many times during the upcoming High Holy Day season will we consider all of these and truly dedicate ourselves to improving our existence? Rabbi Achai, an authority from the Babylonian Academy of the 8th century of the Common Era, has noted that anyone who turns away from a sin that they were about to commit, anyone who turns away from that sin, becomes as fit as the high priest to offer and to serve the sacrifices, even if they are not from the family of priests. So I perhaps suggest this is a goal that we set for ourselves. If we cannot reach the level of perfection of human performance, which truly none of us can, at least we can consciously avoid the stumbling mistakes of a lot of human existence. And then we can still rise as people worthy of God's continued blessing. And then we will be able to count our blessings indeed. Shabbat Shalom. I want to invite the community to turn in the prayer books to page 371. We continue with prayers of healing and wholeness for people that we know and for people that we don't know. There are people who are out there who know that we're praying on their behalf. And although we may not know exactly how God operates in the world of healing, we do know that when a person knows a community is praying on their behalf, and you know this, you who are watching online as well as those who are here, when you know that we pray on your behalf, you feel uplifted and you are better able to put to use your own healing powers that you have within yourselves, and you give yourself the best potential for achieving the healing that you can achieve in your life. On our Temple Bethel healing list, we have about 100 individuals whose prayers continue to remain in our hearts. And there may be people in this sanctuary tonight, our members and our guests from out of town, who are thinking about those individuals in their lives who matter. And if people here would like to name someone in their family or friendship circle who need prayers of healing, we invite you to ask or to add those names right now. Are there others people we should be thinking about? You online, I know, are thinking about certain people as well, and our prayers go for you and for those you love. We continue on page 371, at the middle of the page, with Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. The Kiddush for Erev Shabbat is found on page 123. Please join one another as we thank God for the fruit of the vine and this beautiful day of Shabbat, which is now beginning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kadsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta Yotanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uveratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. Our service continues on page 586 with Aleinu. We invite you to rise. Page 586 at the top of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו השמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Please be seated. We continue together as a community at the top of 589. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. On page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of the righteous always be a blessing. I'm offering this meditation on page 594. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose, a thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. At this special moment in our worship, we pause to remember those people who have been part of our community, who have been part of our lives, who have been part of our world, and yet are no more with us. There are people who died in the last 30 days whom we remember, those whose Yartzeiten occur at this time, and you may have a loved one here, those of us who are attending in the sanctuary, whose names don't appear on our Kaddish list at this time, but whom you'd like to add to this list, and we'll invite you to do so in a few moments. But these are the loved ones whose deaths now we consider. Those connected to our community who died in recent days. We remember with love Dr. Joel Alexander Peterson, husband of Carlene Peterson, brother of Paul Peterson, father of Kyle Peterson, Trent Peterson, and Corey Peterson. Patrick Hugh Passini, mother of Mona Statz, and Marion Meyer, mother of Marla Frank. And these are the Yartzeiten that we observe at this time. If you're tonight here observing a Yartzeit or a mourning in any way, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited. But these are those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. We recall the memories of Bessie Luber Block, Alan David Burstein, Charles O. Davis, Helen Draper, Max Gassman, Bertha Greenbaum, Helen Hefty, Dr. Bension Hose, Lois Hyman, Morris Kaplan, Helen Kaplan, Sylvia Kaufman, Susan Knapp Lundquist, Deborah P. Mahoney, Michael Mayle, Samuel Marcus, Sylvia Pash, Louis I. Poplinger, Sylvia Prager, Elliot J. Resnick, William V. Resnick, Hyman Schuster, Gabriel Arthur Simo, Lawrence Shapiro, Berthold Silverman, Sherwood Slate, Yefim Wasserman, Sylvia Wallach Motin, Bennett Wexler, Samuel Waldenberg, Morris Zaidband, and Irving Paul Zitlin, all of a blessed memory. If there are members of this worship community who have loved ones whose names they'd like to add to our Kaddish list, we invite you to do so.
Sally Wall.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts and the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. testifying to the faith then that binds the generations of humanity together. We invite you to turn to page 598, and as a community, we rise to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma di v'ra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ul almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. May God send peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved. And we say amen. Please be seated. A few announcements, and then we will conclude our service. At the conclusion of the service, by the way, we have, I think, 2 ways tonight to enjoy an Oneg Shabbat. We have an Oneg Shabbat in our community court for those who wish to stay and schmooze. And if you feel that you'd like to grab something and go, we also have some cookies from Just Bakery, those large sugar, chocolate chip, and oatmeal cookies that Just Bakery makes. For those of you who may not know, Just Bakery is a bakery locally that helps people who have been in prison come back into society, gives them some practical work experience, and helps them into the community. It's something that is sponsored by an organization called Just Dane. So used to be the Madison Area Urban Ministries. They changed their name. And so we are pleased to be able to patronize them and to help them do the work that they do. And we thank the Temple Beth El Sisterhood for sponsoring our Oneg Shabbat tonight. Thank you to Mona Statz, who was our greeter tonight. Thank you, Ted Reinke, who provided beautiful music and who kept me in line with all of the prayers, even though I'm a little bit off with my timing. But thank you for being patient, Ted, with me. I also want to thank those of you who are joining us online, certainly, and those who came to our sanctuary tonight. Who's new in town? Just so you see, there are a couple of some visitors in town. Don't be afraid. And you don't have to stay to schmooze, but just say there's some visitors in town, so please, Temple Beth El members, show our visitors the love that we so often give to our people. A few brief announcements. First of all, tomorrow there are a couple of interesting Torah study options that are happening. At 9 o'clock, we have our regular Torah study on the parasha of Matot, which we're reading in this community this week. I'm leading that Torah study. That'll be both here in the adult lounge and also online on Zoom. You can register online if you'd like to get into that, or you can come here and be part of that Torah study. It's called Torah Study Now Hybrid. So that's where we are with the Torah study. And that'll go from 9 to 10. At 10 o'clock, there's a little study, there's a break, and bring your own nosh. I believe we are not serving food, but bring your own nosh and drink and whatever. And then at 10:30, I'm going to continue teaching a second Torah study session on the Haftarot and what that system of special scriptural readings are in the synagogue life. So I did my rabbinic thesis on that, and so I'm just going to present a little bit from my rabbinic thesis about how we connect the Haftarot and why we have Haftarot, those special selections of scripture that we read in addition to the Torah portion on various occasions. That's tomorrow at 10:30 to 11:30 is that second Torah study. Cantor Nami, I'm sure, sends his regards. He's on vacation, and he'll be on vacation again next week. And so next Friday evening, we'll join one another here again with Ted and myself, I hope. And so next Friday evening, worship will be at 7:30 p.m. And next Saturday morning, we have Torah study, also Torah study now hybrid, led by Steve Olson on the parasha of Mas'eh. So for any information about anything that's happening here in Temple Beth El, please go to our website, tbemadison.org. Just one other thing to remind people about. Again, we are coming into that season where we observe various Jewish holy days and milestones toward our High Holy Day season. And one that's coming up will be observed on Sunday afternoon, August 7th. At 3 p.m. here in our sanctuary, Cantor Jacob and I will be leading a Tisha B'Av observance, the 9th of Av, a special day on our calendar when we commemorate many of the destructions that have happened in our people's lives. And after we observe, we try to empathize with how our people might have felt. And then we see how much work we have to do in repentance. You know, the rabbis tell us that the destructions of the temples and all of the difficult things that happen to us, part of the reasons they happen to us, say the rabbis, is because of the baseless hatred that they observed between and among members of the Jewish community. So for us, that's a clue that our individual behavior needs to really improve and needs to change in order for us to eliminate some of the baseless hatred, eliminate some of the contention that exists. Other information can be found on the back of the program tonight. I want to call your attention to something relatively new on the inside cover of our program, and that is sort of a small guide to Temple Beth El. Our vision statement is there, certain accommodations are there, and certain other important statements are there. So I want to just call your attention to that. And if you have any questions, we are here as staff, and I'm here as the rabbi, obviously, to answer questions for you on that. Does anyone from Temple Beth El have an announcement that they'd like to make? Okay. Well, this has been a lovely Shabbat. It continues to be a lovely Shabbat, which goes through another 24 hours, luckily. And we'll conclude with a Shabbat song, Yedid Nefesh, which is on page 128. Yedid Nefesh just talks about the love, really, that we hold for Shabbat and the love that we hold out for the Shabbat at this time. Page 128, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Meshoch Avdecha, El Retzo Necha, Meshoch Avdecha, Lai, 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 El Retzo Yarut Avdecha Emo Ayal Ishtacha Lai 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 El Mul Hadar Yarut Avdecha Lai 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 El Mul Hadarecha. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.